Hi, I'm Jim Schneider. I'm the editorial director of PHC News and Plumbing Engineer magazines, and I'm here in Michigan City, Indiana at Josam and visiting with Scott Holloway Sr., the president and CEO of Josam, and going to talk a little bit about the company, its past, its present, and its future, and some of the products that we have on the market today. And speaking of the past, I think this is a pretty big anniversary year for Josam.
It is, Jim. Thank you for being here today and giving us the opportunity. Josam Manufacturing Company was founded back in 1914 by Joe Herstein and Sam Goldman. The company originally started out in St. Louis, Missouri. Joe Herstein was a master plumber. He developed his first product in 1915, the double drainage flange drain, and that product is still a benchmark today in the drainage industry. 1917 is when they moved out of St. Louis, Missouri to Michigan City, Indiana.
Oh, okay. And so can you tell us a little bit about so you have the Michigan City facility, what other facilities do you have around the country and what goes on at each?
We have a facility in Philadelphia, distribution center in Philadelphia. We also have an office down in Florida, which strictly does our collections for the whole United States. We have 35 consigned warehouses with our factory representatives throughout the country, as well as a total of 46 representatives in all, and an international office. And then we have our manufacturing office in China that does our sourcing over there. And my son, Scott Jr., set up the office in '06 and ran the office, and he just moved back last year, Labor Day weekend, and is now on the sales side for us throughout the country.
We talked a little bit earlier about some of the product innovation that happened early on, and I know that a lot of that innovation still is very relevant today and still in the market today. Can you talk, I guess, a little bit about sort of how Josam has evolved over the years and maybe some of the things that you would think are the same today as when you things started and things that are very different?
Well, I'd like to get back to, I guess, ownership and how it evolved. After the Hersteins owned it, the company was then owned by Lou Polster, and the company fell in hard times in the 80s and actually filed for bankruptcy in Chapter 11 in 1984. And my grandfather was one of the original Josam reps. He started with Josam in the Philadelphia, South Jersey, Delaware area in 1940. And my father, Cas Holloway Jr., was second generation. He came out of the war in 1945 and came to work for my grandfather. And they represented Josam continuously until 1987, when my father and my mother took the company out of bankruptcy. And we never looked back from that point on. So.
And was it kind of, at that point, were there a lot of big changes made at Josam that you guys took forward as your family took things over?
There were several. We were in the old foundry, and the EPA had forced the foundry to close back in '84. One of the first things we had to do, taking it out of bankruptcy, was to reestablish our supply chain with our vendors, and which we were able to do. When we first started, we were 100% American-made, and we had trouble competing with some of our competitors that had already gone offshore. So it actually forced us to start going offshore in 1989. So we were still making domestic product, but we were finally starting to establish chains offshore over in Asia to start sourcing product as well, to make us competitive.
And I did see, as we toured the facility today, you guys have a very distinct mark for what's made. You have a good deal of product that's made here in the United States, and also some that's made in China. And if I'm not mistaken, you have your own people in China who do essentially quality control and checking.
Correct. We have our own office over there. As I said, my son Scott Jr. established the office in '06. We have a Stephen Lee over there is our head engineer. He reports to our engineering department here, and it's a three-man team over there. They do all our inspections with our foundries and our vendors over in the Pacific Rim. So,
Can we, one thing I kind of wanted to touch on too, that we, having talked about sort of the company being as old as it is and also your family taking acquisition of it in the 80s, is there something you would describe as sort of a Josam philosophy, an overarching philosophy that's maybe it's new since your family, or maybe it's something that's been since the beginning?
I think the philosophy goes back to the original founder, Joe Herstein. He always tried to be cutting edge, innovative, and give products that were needed for the industry. He had a relationship with the contractors and the mechanical contractors and the specifying engineers. We have followed that philosophy. My background, I was a contractor in the union contractor in the Philadelphia area, subcontractor on the fire detection side, and we have maintained that relationship with general contractors. We're members of the AGC. I'm I'm a lifetime director on the national board of the AGC, Associate General Contractors of America, and I'm current director on the Philadelphia chapter. So we have value that relationship. We value the relationship with the mechanical contractors. We're members of the MCAA as well. And our main thrust would probably be our specifying engineers, which is the American Society for Plumbing Engineers, ASPE. And this company, I would say if my father were here today, he would say the same thing. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the engineering community. The name Josam was so strong in specifications that is what enabled us to take this company out of bankruptcy. So.
And I can see, I mean, as we looked around today, I thought it's interesting that you had that perspective coming in from the contractor side, and as you say, you're very, I think you understand your customers, the engineers, the contractors, the specifiers in a way that really shows in the way that even the way you package your product. You showed us how kind of components are shrink wrapped with their ancillary parts. And
that was one of the innovative things we did when we took over Josam to compete with our competitors out there. Taking a company out of bankruptcy was very hard, and so we needed whatever edge we could, and we thought, well, being American made was an edge, but we weren't as competitive. But the packaging, we had to make it simpler for the contractor to deal with, for the wholesaler to deal with. So that was an idea that my father had, that we assemble the product, heat shrink the product, and wrap it. And over the years, it's evolved. Now we've, in the last, I guess, 6-7 years, introduced barcoding, where we barcode and label every product. And we've actually, it allows us to get that product into the field quicker to our warehouses, to our representatives. We put the equipment in their warehouses so it's able for them to actually pull the equipment, do a pick cart on it, and they scan it. It sends the billing to Michigan City to our computer, and at the same time it replenishes their inventory. So they know every 2 weeks when their stock truck is coming and what's coming on the truck.